Welcome to Our Leadership Journey. We are Mike Cloutier and Peter Januszewski, and our goal is to interview people leaders at different stages of their career, from frontline managers to CEOs, and extract the leadership lessons they've learned on their journey to help you become a better leader. On this episode, we had the honor of speaking with the highly accomplished Krista Scaldwell. Krista is currently the Vice President of Communications and Corporate Affairs at Canada Life. She has more than 2 decades of public affairs and communications experience in Canada, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and the US in companies such as Coca-Cola and Johnson & Johnson. Krista has also spent many years in the nonprofit sector in management roles and at the board level. Prior to working in industry, she was a senior political staff member at the Ontario government. In recognition of her great leadership and mentoring of others, Krista was named as one of Canada's most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network. In our discussion, we cover the folly of long-term career planning, being respected versus being liked, what overnight success stories get wrong, and the importance of knowing what job you don't want.
So, Krista, thank you for joining us this evening. We're absolutely thrilled to have you be part of our process in the Leadership Journey podcast. You've had a very rich history in leadership, and you've covered many different areas, both in terms of the business community, the government, and in the not-for-profit. So we're excited this evening to understand a little bit about your journey. And as much as we've done some research, we'd probably like to start with just hearing about your story from you directly. So why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about how your journey has gone?
Sure. Well, thanks. I'm happy to be here. You know, it's funny when people ask me about my journey. I'm a real planner when it comes to what's happening this weekend, but my whole career has not been planned. So let me put that out there. And I almost fell into it all by accident. Truly, I had no intention of going to university, and it was a librarian in my high school, the late, great Penny Renton. In fact, she passed away right before I went to university, and this letter came in from Trent University, and there it was. I had a scholarship, something I'd never applied for. So clearly some wheels had been in motion behind my back, and I was really very fortunate that Trent University, where I'm now on the board of governors, took a chance. I was just honestly a kid from the farm. I thought Peterborough was too big a city, but anyway, off I went. And really my journey's been about pursuing things that were of interest. And I always liked risk. As a kid, I was the kid on the garage roof. I was the kid, if the tractor was big, I needed the bigger one to drive. I spent my summers living in British Columbia, living with my older sister. I took the Greyhound when I was 13 because I had saved up my babysitting money. So if there was a risk and I could find a way to try it, I was heading for it. So I've been very lucky. And, you know, in my early days in my career, I was in social services, and I just thought I didn't like the party in power. So I'd find myself working on this local campaign for this little known man, and he would say short, but the late great Jim Flaherty. So I spent my days at work, my nights working for him. I gave up all my vacation, and off I went to work in politics. Just after the election, he would call me, and I wouldn't call him back. I didn't know he wanted a job. I thought he wanted more free volunteer work. I thought, God, I thought I'd given enough. So long story short, I fell in from social services to politics, and then from politics into business, and none of it planned. I did go to university. I studied economics and sociology. I thought I really wanted to go into an economics department of a large bank and just hide away in the corner, some little farm kid that understood something about macroeconomics, but that's not where I landed, and glad for that. But also, you know, later on in life, had a chance to go back to school. My kids were 2 and 4, and again, tripped over it at an event where somebody, an Ivy recruiter, said, you know, you'd love the MBA program. I was like, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't. My kids are 2 and 4. And 4 months later, I was in the MBA program, you know, trying to love it while my kids were 2 and 4. So all that to say, I've been very lucky. I've had a great, U.S. multinational, now with a Canadian company, a history in politics. I still volunteer in politics. I do the group Loving It. Around the table at the farm, the only thing we talked about was after grace at dinner, we were rural Baptist, was politics. And so it came very naturally to me, and something that almost seemingly felt risk-free. But I suppose after I first went to work for Jim Flaherty, my mother said, you have a mortgage, you're single, and if you lose the election, you won't have an income. I was like, what? Nobody said that part to me. So, and my nonprofit experience has really been a lift and shift off my parents. They were a believer of no matter what you have something to give back, and you're equally responsible for the community in which you live and raise your family as you are for looking after your family. So I honestly can't imagine going home to my family and even remotely saying I no longer do anything in my community. It just, it would, you'd be frowned upon, to be very honest. And that's not why I do it. I get a lot of passion out of it, but I'm glad it was part of the DNA of how we grew up. We didn't have a lot, but as my father would always say, my late father, we always have more than somebody else. So. When I worked for Jim Flaherty, he'd say to me, because I'd say to him, so-and-so doesn't like you. Like, I was serious, right? Like this young, super smart advisor that I thought I was, that I wasn't. He'd say, Krista, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be respected. I'd be like, oh, okay. But everyone who doesn't like you calls me. He'd say, that's because they respect me too much. If they actually didn't respect me, they'd call and tell me. I think there's just moments in our careers where we need to be reminded difficult decisions means that not everyone's going to agree. And, my brother-in-law, who was a very senior executive in Interwest, would say to me, it's better to make a decision and make a mistake than to make no decision, because no decision is a decision. So,
Krista, in doing some research on you, I came across a video where you were giving a keynote speech, and you shared some thoughts on overnight success. Do you remember what you said about overnight success?
Yeah, it doesn't happen. It's not overnight. You've got to do the work. That's, the sources of its success. That was at the 4-H Global Forum. And, people want this to happen overnight, and it just doesn't. You've got to, do the time, do the work, build upon. It's like muscle building. I've been watching the Olympics, and I've had the good fortune of working with Damien Warner, Canada's lead decathlete. And, as he always reminds me, you're always building. And I think careers are like that. I didn't wake up. I talk to lots of young people. How can I be you? Or I want to be you. You want to be me? Let me tell you what happened over the years, sleepless nights, hard work. When I was going back to do my MBA, my kids were young. I was working internationally. I was on 2 nonprofit boards, 1 corporate board. And every day from the time I went to university, all my life growing up, I got up at 5:30. And then someone said to me, Madeline Albright got up at 4:30 a.m. to go to law school. I was like, I don't mean Madeline Albright. I got to not be me. I got to be her. So then I started 4:30. And until COVID, I kept my 4:30 a.m. start. So it's not overnight, and it's not 9 to 5.
You said something earlier, and it kind of melded. There's a couple of things that are all coming together here for me that I want to just chat a little bit more about, because I think people are in a hurry to succeed, but I'm not sure that they really truly understand what it is they want to succeed at, or what success looks like. You weren't a career planner. You were a risk taker. But you also were you've expressed that you have to love what you do. So how does that all work together in a career that's firing all over the place and you've done some rather different things?
Yes.
Tie it together.
Yeah, so it's interesting. People say, how did you jump from pharma to Coca-Cola? So my passion is I love media relations. I love communications. I loved learning, going through business school, learning the business. for me, it's about what's in front of me and being present. I think the mistake people make is they, I want to be the CEO. By the way, I always said I didn't want to be the CEO because I just thought I would see so many stressed out CEOs, Michael. You knew that, especially in pharma, and we're going through national pharma care. I was like, I don't ever want that job. So know what you don't want, right? Like I knew what I didn't want. I never, people would say to me, if you do a stint in sales and then do your MBA, I was like, I am never going to be the CEO. And I'm so happy about that because it is not the job I wanted. And so, I've combined my passion for learning, my passion for public affairs. And then, I like people. When you grow up in a big family and there's always people around in a small town, leading people seemed very normal to me. This is kind of like a little campaign back home. When the church was vandalized a few years ago, I did a little campaign to raise money, but also awareness that other little churches need to be locked up and they need to be historic sites so they can get extra money from government. So it's my own little, and that's the kind of way I've done it is I haven't looked too far in front of me. My son will say to me when I'm 20, and I'll say to him, I can't answer a question about when you're 20. I can answer a question about tomorrow. I've really built on the present and been present and enjoyed the journey. I have had so much fun in my career, working in politics. I wasn't thinking about, so many of my friends would say, I'm only going to this company, or I'm only going to make this much money. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to have a lot of fun on this election campaign. In 1999, it was tough. I worked on the 98 federal election. We lost. I was on the tarmac at Pearson and Jean Charest and his wife having tears. I was enjoying the journey. It's okay to lose. Losing can be as much fun because you've learned something from the loss. And so tying it together has really been about learning. No matter what I did, I learned, whether it was positive or negative or a wrist slap or a big promotion, didn't matter, to enjoying the people. I still go to events out. Like I went to Johnson & Johnson through an acquisition of Pfizer. So I spent almost 15 years there. We still, up until COVID, I go out to the pub nights or I'm invited to this or that. Coke, my friends at Coke, we still get together a couple times a year. Even in COVID, we're in backyard social distancing. Like it's for me, the people that I had the fun with, that I got to learn with, they're still in my life. I mean, I have relationships from politics that, I was helping a recent candidate who is now been nominated to run in the next federal election. I know when he was in university, he's now a father of two. He's up in Midland. He's running in my home riding. It's just that finding what you do and the people you want to be around every day is such a great day. Like I'm having fun every single day. It's as crazy as that sounds. It's what ties it together for me is doing what I believe in, not compromising my values, taking a risk, and just, having a blast at it. Like I can't wait for Adam to run because I get to go work on his campaign and door knock without putting my name on the ballot.
Right.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Krista, through all the experience that you've had and all the teams that you've led in all these different areas, how do you want to be remembered as a leader by the people that were on your teams?
Fun. That they had some fun because you've got to, especially when you're in crisis. I've been dealing with an issue at work right now, a media issue that's really sensitive, and it's okay to still have some fun in the middle of it all. And when I do my offsites with teams, whatever company I've been at, somebody that's had their back. Sometimes I don't agree with what my team do or what one of my staff does, but you got to have their back. You can have a teachable moment after, but I need to have their back. And somebody that did something that they, want to be remembered as somebody who loved what they did, that was doing it from the right place, doing it with passion and conviction, that was willing to teach. I think there comes an age in your career where I sometimes feel more like a teacher. And I always said, my mother wanted me to be a teacher. It's like, I'm not a teacher, but I'm a teacher now, but you're teach by the moments, not by the curriculum that somebody tells you have to teach. So I just want to remember that I believed in them, that I had fun, that I gave them a chance. I helped them take the risks that they needed to take, I love it when they step up and they want to take, I've got a couple of maternity leaves and people are going out of their comfort zones. I have spent most of my life out of my comfort zone. And I'm going to tell you, I loved it. I mean, the minute you get comfortable, I think is a sign that you're in the wrong place.
Krista, in that, when you think about the earlier leadership experiences, when you were first put in those positions where you had people reporting into you, what are the sort of qualities personal to you that you've had to sort of turn up the dials on, or maybe turn down some qualities to sort of fit that leadership position?
I think always integrity has served me well. I grew up seeing a lot of integrity. Compassion is one. I watched my parents have a lot of compassion. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and yet somebody might order a pig for meat and it's near Christmas and they don't have the money to pay for it. My dad wasn't going to hold out on them. He made sure they ate, right? We sacrificed before they did. I think I've had to hold back a bit on, I like to go at a pace, come on. I'm like, Michael, it's 4:30 in the morning. I just emailed you people. Where are you? Why I love working for Jim Flaherty, because we would be talking at 5:30 in the morning. Did you see the news? It was before email, right? Did you see the news? Yes, I saw the Sun. Did you believe they said that about you? I know. I'm going to call that reporter for you. Right. So I think it's been my pace. I've had to hold back on a bit. Not everybody wants to give up this much personal time. And by the way, I don't see it as giving up personal time. It's fueling my love of it. Right. So I think that's been part of it. I think, the thing that's always been there, though, is I'm very fortunate, the values and integrity. And also, I've always been anchored in two worlds. I'm about to buy the family home at the farm. That's where I'll retire. My two best friends, one's still on the same concession, married to a local farmer, and another one married to a local farmer, moved 10 miles away. Still my best buddies. I've worked all over the world. I've done lots of great, interesting things corporately, but my love is also still back home, so I've been able to bridge two worlds, I think, nicely. Like, I spent Sunday, my boyfriend is also from back home. He's an Air Canada pilot. So he's kind of spent his life the same way too, like in two worlds. And there we are out on the boat with friends that, one friend's still in the same farm community, but we all still have lots in common. We all still take risks. Farming's a big risk, by the way. And we all still enjoy life and do what we love. So it doesn't matter what we do, right?
How about if you were to go back right now, think back to that very first time you were leading and may have been a team of 1 or 2 or 3 or 100, depending on your situation. What's the one thing that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Well, I first led a team. It was, I think, about 26 or 30 people in a group home for mentally ill. I just wish I knew how much they needed, because I was young. I was younger than most of the people I led. And for me, I spent years at 4-H. I'm now on the 4-H Foundation board. And, 4-H was all about running a meeting and being organized. And by the way, you got to get home and get chores done. So there was an end time, right? I think people needed more from me, but I didn't know they needed more from me, because I just thought when a meeting went from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, for sure it had a hard stop, because you had to move on to the next business thing. And I had a very business approach in a nonprofit, running group homes for people moving out of Whitby Psychiatric Hospital. There's a lot of emotional strain on the staff. I was young. I was 25, 26. And I had 30 staff. We had 24/7 shifts. You're on call, which that part never bothered me. But I realized, looking back, they probably needed more of me. And I had no idea how to coach people on development. I was a kid. I was 26, but I was super organized, right? Which is what the ministry would say they were looking for, and the organization was looking for, because you have to be. I ran a 7-bed crisis unit and an 11-bed group home. You're always on fire and in the moment. And I loved that part, but the people that worked for me probably needed a lot more of me. And I didn't know enough. I was so green. And I also came from a place that, when a sow is having a baby, you go to the barn at 2 a.m., but not everybody grew up like that. So when you get a call at 2 a.m. because there's been an attempted suicide, It's really hard on people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I can tell you now, they would tell you this, it's good in the moment, but it wasn't good in the after moments because I would move on, right? It was like, but it's not for everybody. Or it was hard.
Can you tell us about the Hutchinson Alumni Challenge at Trent University?
Sure. So I was really fortunate to get to university. As I said, it was a little bit of I was very lucky and that the librarian, and they were, one of the things that happens is you graduate from university and you feel like if you can't give 5,000, you don't get anything at all. So the challenge was to honor my parents who didn't get that chance. And it's $10,000 to match small donations of new alumni, with the idea being we've been reaching out to new graduates to say, give $50. It's going to get matched. It's actually $100, because if you start at 50 and 100 and studies show, A, you stay connected to the institution, and B, you're more likely to give when there's another chance. So the idea was to give a contribution in honor of my mom and dad who wouldn't have been able to afford that. And I took a look at what probably the value of what I was given as an entrance scholarship, and that would be the amount. So
that's beautiful.
A lovely idea.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Krista. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the rapid fire section.
Okay, bring it on.
First question, Krista. If someone wrote a biography of your professional journey to date, what would be the title?
Oh, well, I've got a book in me. I always say that everyone has a book in them, but it'd be Bringing Home the Bacon. So, I've been the breadwinner, growing up in a pig farm and recently divorced, but my ex-husband was an at-home dad. And so I brought home the bacon. So I've always said it's Bringing Home the Bacon, a girlfriend's guide to being the breadwinner.
Oh, man.
That's good.
I know. I'm on it. I think I will write it. I just don't know when.
Okay, I love the title. That's got to be up there in terms of the ones that we've heard. So thank you for sharing that. Given how provocative that title is, I can just assume that there's going to be some media companies, maybe Netflix is lining up to say, "Hey, we want to take this book, turn it into a movie." If that were to happen, Krista, who do you think would be in the lead role in this film?
Well, if it's not Amy Schumer, I'll be disappointed. If Amy's too busy, it's going to be Gillian Anderson. She plays the Iron Lady in The Crown. So yes. I'm going with, Amy Schumer first, but I get she's busy doing lots of commercials even. But if she's not available, I'm willing to let it be Gillian Anderson.
Wonderful choices. That's great.
Oh.
Okay, the next one, I think I actually might know the answer to this because I in the digging that I did, I found you listed a song that I think is maybe a sort of business motivation. So yes. I'll see if this is the same one that you list. So if you're going to write a theme song, or if you think there one already exists that summarizes what you think is sort of critical, like an anthem for leadership, what would the chorus line be of that song?
You know what? I laugh. I think Canadian artists are the best. And Randy Bachman, I've seen him a number of times at charity events. And whenever I'm there with people, I say, he's singing to me, taking care of business. Do you know that, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? And the most recent time I saw him was in Winnipeg at the square outside the Winnipeg Jets there. And I was right here and he was right there. And I'm sure he sang it to me. But I just think that song, and, my late father, growing up rural Baptist, we didn't have a lot of rock and roll in the house, but he was smart enough to play it at the barn because if you wanted to sing and dance. So I could create my own, but why waste my time? Because Randy Bachman at one event defined the whole story behind taking care of business. I'm in. It's mine. We'll share it. He can keep the money. I think it's a great song,
Agreed. Yeah, that is a great song. Thank you. Okay. For the people that have been on your teams, perhaps it's new employees, maybe it's new managers, have you gifted books to staff? Or if not, then maybe friends, colleagues? What are those sort of books that you think would be sort of helpful from a career leadership perspective?
So there's two I've gifted a few times. And I'll tell you, one is a funny story, but I've gifted Monday Morning Choices, and the author's name escapes me. It was all about taking, and I still do this, like book 20 minutes on Monday. What did I do well? And more importantly, what didn't I do well last week? And it might be in your personal life. It might be going back to your kids and saying, I'm really sorry I wouldn't let you have the car, but I was nervous, or, but that's a great book. There's so many great books out there. I'm a big, huge reader. I'm reading The Naked Mind right now, all about how alcohol has infiltrated everything from our work lives to our personal lives. But Monday Morning Choices is one I've gifted many times. And then hold your laughter, but I love this book called The No Asshole Rule. Years ago, there was somebody who, honestly, he just couldn't behave in the workplace. He was an asshole. I mailed it. This is funny. A few weeks later, he says, I've kind of gone through the list of people that would take that kind of a risk. And he said, I think I'm supposed to say thank you for the book. I said, you're welcome. Most books I send, I write a little note with, because I've sent a lot of books as gifts. But I've given that one to that person needed it because they were being an asshole. But most times for people who are a little less assertive, who might take things they shouldn't take in the workplace.
Right.
It's a good book also around your personal life. Sometimes we tolerate those people in our lives that we associate as friends because maybe we grew up with our neighbor. You actually don't have to have them on a regular basis. Or you can say, boundaries are very important to me. And so I do like that book. But Monday Morning Choices, it's just a reminder that there's a moment in each week that you need to ask yourself. It's really helped me as a mom. I had full custody of my kids. It was a busy time. They were early teens when that happened. And to remind myself, like, what didn't go well last week? What did we miss? Or, it's a good habit.
Wonderful. Those are, I haven't heard of either of those, so I'm very much looking forward to digging into those. So thank you for those recommendations.
Well, by the No Asshole Rule by the dozen, you don't know who you might want to give that to.
I mean, it's sort of like if you time it with, the yearly review for someone that's maybe not doing so well. Here's your review. By the way, there's something in the mail coming your way to sort of supplement our conversation.
I have to say, I hesitated to drop it in the internal office mail that day, and then I thought, screw it. What's the worst case scenario? I got a large corporate package coming my way. Yeah.
Well, hey, look, this was it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks very much, Krista. It was delightful.
Well, this is awesome. You look great, Michael, and I'll look forward to meeting you both in person again.
Where can people find you, Krista? If someone wants to follow up with you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect.
I am on there more than anything else. It's for me, I'm on there every day. They have great articles. So LinkedIn's a great place to find me.
Perfect. We'll link that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Krista.
Sure. Thanks.
Have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care.